Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Talk to Berg. I'm Berg, your host, broadcasting from the heart of the Blue Ridge in the beautiful city of Roanoke, Virginia. I'm glad you're here and I hope you stay because today we're going to be traveling back in time 76 years ago to talk about a terrible crime that happened right here in Roanoke. It shocked not only the whole city, but the whole United States. So stay around. You don't want to miss that. We'll be traveling back in time now 76 years ago to Sunday, May 8th, 1949. That day was Mother's Day, which breaks my heart because no mother should find out on Mother's Day of all days that her teenage daughter wouldn't be coming home that night or ever again. That's heartbreaking. Roanoke native Dana Marie Weaver was a 16-year-old junior at Jefferson High School in Roanoke. Dana was tall, blonde, beautiful, a very attractive teenager, but she was also unassuming, a very modest person. Dana was very popular among her friends. She loved to tell jokes, a very happy person. That afternoon, Dana, two other girls, and three boys were out in town and out of town for a drive to have fun, doing whatever teenagers in the 40s did for fun. So they went out of town, and then when they came back in the later afternoon, the other two girls were dropped off at the places where they chose to be dropped off at, and Dana asked to be dropped off at Christ Episcopal Church near downtown Roanoke. She was supposed to attend a youth meeting that was supposed to happen that afternoon, something she had done many times before. What she didn't know is that the meeting had been canceled that afternoon because the pastor had taken the youth for some kind of camping out of town. And Dana didn't know that. And it was the 1940s. Nobody had cell phones and they could just send group text messages or emails, just telling people what was going to happen, what wasn't going to happen, what has been canceled. They didn't have that capability at that time. So Dana pretty much thought the meeting was still going on. So they dropped her off at Christ Episcopal Church as she asked, and they left. And Dana made her way into the parish house, and unfortunately, that was the last time anybody would ever see Dana alive. As Dana made her way into the parish house, she noticed that there was someone else there, 16-year-old Lee Scott. Lee was also a junior at Jefferson High School, and he was also a very active teenager in his community. He was a Boy Scout, he was active at YMCA, and he was a wrestler, and he actually sang in the choir in that church. Lee was waiting for a friend that was supposed to arrive there for them to play table tennis and go watch a movie later. And that friend didn't arrive, so Dana and Lee started talking, and they decided to play table tennis themselves. They didn't find the equipment to do so, so they decided to go upstairs to the kitchen to drink some soda. And they kept talking, and that's when things started getting really strange. As they kept talking, Dana made some remarks about a boy named Jimmy Webb. Jimmy was a wrestling champion. He was a close friend to Lee. Lee actually had that boy as a hero, as kind of an idol, because Lee was also involved with wrestling. And Lee wasn't happy that Dana was talking about his hero, Jimmy. And he got so upset that at a certain point, he started attacking Dana physically. He hit Dana in the face and head with the soda bottle he was drinking from. And from there, things got really bad. We're not going to all the graphic details here, but as Dana fell to the floor, Lee got on top of her and he beat her up pretty bad. He did a lot of damage to her body. Dana struggled a lot. Lee was much stronger, and there wasn't much she could have done. Lee kept beating her up, and Dana tried to defend herself. He scratched his face, he scratched his neck and arm. Unfortunately, In the very end, Lee strangled Dana to death. He choked her to death. A very sad situation. Two teenagers, 16-year-olds, go to a church for different reasons. One of them ended up dead that night. The other one, his life would be turned upside down in a way that nobody would ever imagine. The medical examiner testified later that Dana might have been struggling for about 5 to 6 minutes while Lee was choking her. And it's usually what takes a person to die from suffocation, from being choked to death. And Lee had 5 minutes. He could have just got up and left. Nothing would have happened like this. But he probably thought he was going to be in trouble anyway, so he kept doing it until Dana was dead. And now Lee, noticing that Dana was stopped moving, he thought she either passed out or was dead, so he needed to get out of there. And he panicking, he picks up some kind of a coffee urn and the soda bottle that he hit Dana with, and they had blood stains on them, and as well as his clothes and shoes had blood stains. So he leaves the church and started walking home. Very strangely, instead of kept walking home, he goes to some kind of a back alley to the back of his friend's house that lived about a block from the church. And he dumps those items in one of the trash cans of bin right there. Why he did that, we don't know. He was trying to incriminate his friend, or just try to get rid of evidence. And as he started walking towards home, his friend was in the back porch of his house and he saw Lee. So he called Lee. Lee came in, they started talking. And of course, Lee didn't say anything about what he just had done. So Lee goes home and hides his clothes and shoes that had blood stains on them in his closet and goes to sleep. Now, meanwhile, back in the church, a lady just arrived there to pick up her granddaughter that was with the youth team that the pastor had taken for camping. As the granddaughter wasn't there, she goes upstairs to call a parent to find out what was going on. And remember, there was no cell phone, so she had to use a landline. Now, ironically, that landline phone was on the wall close to, just beside the dining hall that contains the kitchen where Dana's body was. And of course, she had no idea. So she makes her phone call and goes back downstairs to wait for her granddaughter. If she just had moved a little bit and looked in the kitchen, she would have seen Dana's body, but that wasn't the case. So later on, the youth arrives and they leave some things in the parish house that they were supposed to leave there for the afternoon. The pastor of the church comes in, he checks the place, and apparently nobody had used the dining hall and kitchen that day, so he had no reason to check him. So he just keeps going, check everything else, turn the lights off, lock the doors, and goes home. They were right there, and they had no idea that there was a teenager, 16-year-old, that had been beaten and strangled to death. Less than an hour prior, there was just right there. They just went home. They had no idea. So Dana's body wouldn't have been discovered until the next morning by the church janitor. Now, meanwhile, Dana's mother was worried about her daughter not being home, and she didn't know what was going on. She called Dana's friends, the ones that were with her, that afternoon, and they confirmed that they left her by the parish house for the meeting that was supposed to happen. And as the hours kept passing by, she was getting more and more worried, and she called the police. Somehow, for whatever reason, police didn't do anything that night, and of course she couldn't go to sleep, and the hours kept passing by. We don't know what happened after that, but I can't even imagine what that lady was going through. That poor mother, she already had lost two of her sons. One was an infant, died when he was just 9 days old. The other one was a Marine that was killed in action in World War II in 1945, just 4 years prior, and now she was losing her only daughter. Now, here's an important detail. Everything that we know about what happened between Lee and Dana in the parish house, we only know by whatever Lee told authorities later when he was being questioned about the murder. So there was no way for us to know that this is exactly what happened. Things could have happened differently. Many more things could have happened. We would never know. There is no way for us to know. So whatever Lee told authorities, that's what we know. Now, the next morning, the church custodian arrives at the church for his regular cleaning duties. So he goes to the church, he starts cleaning, and makes his way to the parish house. I don't know a lot about that gentleman's life and what he's been through, what he has seen, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't ready to see what he was about to see. The blood-soaked, badly bruised body of a 16-year-old girl who had been strangled the night before. I'm sure he wasn't ready for that. Now, here's an important detail. The custodian was a black man. In the 1940s, segregation in the United States was alive and well, so he was wise enough to know that he wasn't supposed to call the police himself to let them know that he found the body of a white person for obvious reasons that we all know. So he did what whoever in his situation would have done. He left and went to the pastor's house and asked him to call the police, told him what he saw so the pastor could call the police. So pastor called the police and they came in, and the crime scene was a chaos. What they saw there was blood everywhere, there was broken dishes, furniture out of place. They knew something big had happened, but now they had the puzzle. They had no idea who had done that. They had no clue. They probably thought a vagrant, homeless person was in the church. Dana came in and surprised them, and in the heat of the moment, they attacked her and killed her. They had no idea that, they would never imagine that someone like Lee Scott, a choir boy from the church, would have done such a thing. Now, police searching for clues, they noticed that Dana had some broken fingernails, and underneath some of her fingernails, there were bits of skin. So that meant that Dana had scratched her assailant. So now they had something to go on. They would be looking for someone who had scratches, and they probably will find the culprit. Now, it was Monday morning, regular school day. Lee Scott goes to school like he would have done in any other Monday like that. And his classmates, of course, they couldn't help but notice the scratches on Lee's face, neck and arm. That was unusual. And when they asked him what happened, he came up with some excuses about poison ivy or poison oak, one of those. And he kept that story. Now, as the day goes by, word that Dana had been found dead that morning, it started going around, and he gets to school. And of course, word that police was now looking for somebody with scratches to find out who killed Dana. Word spread around and got to school as well. So students, Dana's classmates, Scott's classmates, they started getting suspicious. They want to know what happened to Scott's face. Now, here's some irony. Dana's funeral would be just 2 days away, and the students started collecting money to buy flowers for Dana's funeral. And ironically, the person responsible to get the money, to collect the money, was no other than Lee Scott. That's the biggest of the ironies. And apparently, as they, of course, noticing Lee Scott's face, they asked him kind of I don't know, as a joke or something, if he was the one who killed Dana. And he, as a joke, said, "Yeah, I killed her. Why don't you call the police?" And he was joking, but little did they know that he was really telling the truth. Now, as the day goes by and students get more suspicious about those scratches on Lee's face, one of the female students picked up the phone and made a phone call to police to come and check on Lee's face. And there was a turning point on the whole investigation. At that point, they had no idea who had done that, but they came to Jefferson School quietly, without causing any alarm. Scott was called, I think, to the principal's office, and apparently when police saw Lee and the scratches on his face, they knew they had hit the jackpot. Sunday night, when Dana died, and her mother was still looking for her, wondering what happened to her, she had no idea that her daughter was lying dead just less than half a mile away from her. If you look at this map, it shows where Dana used to live, 504 Day Avenue. That's where she used to live when she died. And 1101 Franklin Road, that's where the church was and still stands to this day. That poor mother had no idea that her daughter had been strangled to death that night and was just like less than half a mile away. As we mentioned before, Dana was involved in many activities, and one of the things she was responsible for was to organize a dance party for the seniors at Jefferson High School. And the night before, that Saturday, she went out with some friends to kind of clean up the hall where the party was supposed to happen. And Dana made her way to some part of the hall. She opened the closet and a bird just flew out of there. Dana turned to her friends and said, "You guys better watch out because that means death." Kind of a premonition of what was about to happen to her. It was her own death. Less than 24 hours later, she would be dead. Now back to Jefferson High School. After police interviewed Lee, he was taken to the police station for further interrogation, and apparently he stayed there all day. His parents were called there as well. And to make a long story short, Lee eventually confessed to the crime. He admitted to killing Dana. He told them how he did it, why he did it, why he had to do what he had to do, according to his words. He led police to the back of his friend's house to collect the items that he got from the church. And eventually, police went to his house and retrieved the items. There was his clothes and shoes that were stained with blood as well. So the evidence was too much. There was no way he could deny that. And eventually, he was held for the murder of Dana Marie Weaver. Dana's funeral was at Raleigh Court United Methodist Church on Grandin area where she used to live before. It was that Wednesday, 3 days after she was murdered. And so many people attended that some of them had to wait outside. They couldn't fit in the church. Dana was very popular. That crime, it was considered the crime of the century, and people prayed and wished that would never happen again in Roanoke or anywhere. It gave Roanoke a bad reputation for years to come, and no wonder a 16-year-old girl murdered in a church of all places, a place where she should have felt safe, not threatened and not murdered. That's a very sad situation. Lee's trial began. His father got the best lawyer, tried to clear his name, tried to prove that he was innocent, but the evidence was too much. The heat was on. There was no way to deny that Lee Scott was the one. And besides the confession and all the items they collected from the crime scene, blood stains, all the evidence, there was too much. There was no way he could get away with that. So his trial began, and after all the court procedures, he was found guilty of murder. The court sentenced him to 99 years to be served in a Virginia state prison. His parents still in denial, but it was a done deal. Scott was on his way to prison to pay for the crime committed against Dana Marie Weaver. Lee Scott began serving his sentence as imposed by the courts, and as the years passed, he was up for parole many times, and all those times parole was denied. And meanwhile, some people sent letters to the parole board and to the governors, just stating how good of a person Lee was. He was active in his community. He was a Boy Scout. He was a choir boy. To no avail. Nothing worked. And at the same time, of course, the ones who didn't want him to be released, including, of course, Dana's mother, sent letters as well. The years passed. Unfortunately, after serving only 17 years of his sentence, Lee was pardoned by then Governor Harrison of Virginia. Lee was then released from prison. He moved to Ohio, away from everything here, and he moved eventually to Indiana. He got married. He started a new life. Meanwhile, Dana's mother had to live with the fact that her daughter's killer was walking free. He had another chance in life. He could restart. He could start a new life away from everything. And her daughter was dead. They would never had that chance again. Dana's mother died in 1981. She's buried in the same cemetery that Dana is. And Lee Scott passed away in 1996. Apparently, his family never knew about his past, about what he did, until after he died. We are coming to the end of our video, and of course we had to make a long story short, because if we were to tell all the details about this story, we would be here for hours. But don't go away. There's much more to come. This event, it was special to me because ever since I moved to Roanoke, I lived for years in the same neighborhood that Dana used to live, even though 70-something years later, most likely I went to places where she used to go. I attended services at the church where she was murdered, and attended service also at the church where her funeral was held. And as a musician, I performed many times at the Jefferson Center, the place where Jefferson High School used to be, the school that Dana and Lee went to. So it made it very special to me. That's why I decided to make this video. Now we'll be showing you the places related to this story, like the churches, the high school, Dana's last address, and we're going to end up with a visit to Dana's grave to pay our respects. So stay around. You don't want to miss that. This photo shows the kitchen of Christ Episcopal Church where Dana died, and the arrow pointing to where her body was found the next morning by the church custodian. And this is Dana's death certificate issued by the Commonwealth of Virginia, showing the place where it happened, Christ Episcopal Church. The date of death, May 8, 1949. And the cause of death, asphyxia by choking.
If time heals wounds, tell me why it won't heal my heart. And now I can see you away. My dreams, all the memories of your life, sitting heavy on my heart. I lost you in that place of gathering as your shining light was fading away. And all I know is I wish I could see you again. Now I reach for shadows where your light used to be. No sunrise, no sunshine, my darkest day.